What's up guys, Houndish here, and today I wanted to jump in and talk about stuff that is missing in Destiny 2. And on the most part we're going to be talking about stuff that we don't have right now, but that we have had before in Destiny, and I wanted to talk about some remaining big opportunities for Bungie to bring back systems or types of content, albeit in a new format. However, Bungie have been doing some amazing things with D2. Firstly, Shadowkeep looks really exciting, we've got Armor 2.0, the new artifact system, all of that new stuff is looking really cool. And then if we go back through year 2, we got the huge Forsaken drop, the title system, new progression, weapon updates, pinnacle weapons, endgame locations, and the list really goes on. And so I think it's unfair to argue that D2 hasn't grown or improved significantly during its life cycle, but there are some things from D1 which did set a really high standard, and for some of those elements I don't think D2 has hit that same quality bar. Once again, we're talking specifically about certain things here, and I think from a technical and gameplay perspective, most of D2's systems are now pushing beyond what D1 had. So we're going to talk about it in the video. As always though guys, let us know down below what you'd love to see in Destiny, stuff that you think is missing, stuff that you'd love to see brought back from D1, or even new ideas that Bungie could pursue. First up, let's talk about strike-specific loot. This is actually something that Bungie have kind of done a major passover in the history of D2. That was when they added Nightfall-specific items to drop, so it's totally something which developed since vanilla Destiny 2, but as Bungie have admitted, the normal strike playlists and the loot associated with them are definitely lacking right now compared to in Destiny 1. Many times we've spoken about the themed gear that we got back in Strikes in D1. There's certainly a hunger for more stuff like that, but there are also massive opportunities for kind of things like Strike mods, other rewards, and progression, especially with Armor 2.0 and the new artifact system. Between the reasons to play Strikes and the loot that you get from normal Strikes right now, also even the fun factor, a lot of the modifiers that we had for Strikes in Destiny 1 with the builds that we could use would make Strikes feel absolutely destroyable. And later on we had skeleton keys where we could kind of guarantee that we'd be able to get a certain drop or at least one of these specific drops for a given strike, and it made it really farmable, which once again now that we have random rolls and with the new armor system we're going to see, I think most players can agree that strikes could be a hell of a lot better than what they are now, and some of the things that could make them better have already been done in the past in Destiny 1. Let us know your thoughts about that, but it would be a kind of similar situation when it comes to vendors in the game. I think quite a lot of vendors need some love. Of course, there are a few different sides to this. We have the rituals the vendors bring with them, and that would probably even include faction rallies, which, of course, is another thing that we're missing at the moment, as well as the traditional kind of style factions that we had in Destiny 1. Neither of them are actually a thing in the game in Destiny 2 right now, and they haven't been for a little while. Then there is the subject of the gunsmith, for example. Another ritual that we saw in Destiny 1 would be Arms Day, and then even with the general vendors in the game when they had massive kind of loot pools of weapons, every week those would reset and we get different rolls. So yeah, as most players have said over the past year or so, we do miss those kind of big rolling weekly inventories. And now with the seasonal model, it's totally something that Bungie could build back into the game. I mean, we do have pinnacle quests that come from vendors. They don't leave them absolutely barren, but even if it's only the weapons we're talking about, it'd be really good to see bigger inventories with more variety. I think if faction rallies aren't a thing that Bungie actually want to bring back in the future, I'd love to just see the faction vendors come back with kind of basic allegiance. They could add exotic class items, a few reasons to actually pledge to them. Don't know about you guys, but I'd certainly rather have old factions than no factions. Now, the thing that many people have been speaking about for quite some time would be the PvP endgame, but the state of the Crucible in general. We've been stuck kind of in a bit of a loop since Forsaken dropped. Of course, before that, we did have Trials, albeit a lesser enjoyed version of Trials than what we had in D1, and that's gone away. And then since Forsaken, where there were a hell of a lot of sandbox changes and some new maps, the game really was shaken up. But then in the annual pass, the time since Forsaken, things have definitely dried up. However, before we go any further, we should remember that Bungie will be doing a reveal for future PvP content sometime this summer. Going into Shadowkeep reveals, Bungie said that Trials itself isn't going to be a focus at the start of Year 3, and that they had more fundamental things to fix first. However, whatever it is that Bungie want to reveal and have playable at PAX is clearly significant enough to actually have a reveal for, so they do know about the PvP problem, and we'll have to see what they're showing off. Maybe a general overhaul for Crucible, perhaps some significant new mode or something, and obviously that's great news, but I think we should still highlight some of what isn't working for PvP. Now, the PvP endgame. Of course, we do have pinnacle weapons, we have reasons to grind through Valor ranks or Glory ranks every season. There are the foundations of really solid progression systems in PvP, but when we talk about Trials, we're really talking about a high stakes, competitive mode, but something that truly feels like an event. I think one of the reasons that Trials is actually missed, as well as the gameplay, right? The competitive element and the stress or pleasure of failure or success I think one of the really cool things about Trials in D1 is that it kind of was like a story in itself. It starts out with an activity in PvP, but there was real prestige, not just to get into the lighthouse and getting an emblem or getting a weapon, which of course all of those things are amazing, but there was a real sense of mystery around the location, prestige around actually being there and having the opportunity to potentially discover some of the secrets of Trials, right? I think that is one of the lesser discussed components that really complemented everything else that worked about it as a competitive arena or event. And I'd say the same for everything that we've touched on in this video. Bungie don't need to literally just copy what they did in D1, and I very much don't think that that's something they want to do based on how they've iterated on content in D2. Sometimes things don't need to be exactly the same, but they maybe kind of need to be replaced with an equivalent, and if it's a better one, then that's great. But for PvP specifically, along with new reasons to play, sandbox and environment have definitely been allowed to get kind of stale in year 2. It sucks that even new maps haven't really been a thing since September. Once again, pinnacle weapons and quests are a reason to be in there, and I know not everybody loves PvP, but alongside more regular sandbox adjustments that avoid certain problems sticking around, it really is that endgame loop that PvP still feels like it's missing. Once again, let me know what you guys think down below. You might be a really hardcore PvP player, so it'd be fantastic to get some perspective if you are. You might be someone who kind of enjoys PvP or really doesn't enjoy PvP, so there's always going to be mixed feedback when we talk about this stuff, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it below. One thing that a lot of players really do enjoy are crazy armor visuals, you know? It's one of the reasons that people are going after Solstice gear this year. And I'm gonna say it again, man, but cosmetically, some of the pinnacle armor in Destiny 1 absolutely destroys what we see in D2 visually. Of course, that is just an opinion, and that's not to say everything we have in D2 is bad, but I think it's more of a question of what we're missing. And I kind of think about it like this, you know, character progression in D2 is pretty strong. We've got titles, we've got collections, and there are neat ways to show player achievement, right? Some of the things you can do in D2 are pretty difficult to do or take a really long time. And when I look at a pinnacle character, right, you know, a guardian that has an awesome title, but they're decked out in pinnacle weapons, emblems and items that kind of tell you what they've done, especially if those things are pretty difficult to do. One of the things that I often feel like is missing is that visual quality of pinnacle D1 gear. Whether it was raid ornaments or trials ornaments, you know, kind of like Solstice is pinnacle in terms of being able to put in a really solid grind and making that investment to get it. I think a lot of players really miss feeling like a badass when they're wearing stuff that shows their achievements in a really flaunting way, right? I'd love to see more of that stuff going into year 3, and it would be an amazing way to kind of round out Armor 2.0, right? We're getting ultimate power, loads of customization, and who doesn't love the style to show that you have that, right? It's stuff that makes people jealous, or makes them want to do that thing as well. So yeah, trials, raids, endgame, pinnacle, I think it really needs to be loudly communicated by what players are wearing. And so we've spoken about quite a few things here. Bear in mind, a lot of these things we had back in D1. Destiny players definitely want other things, right? We'd love to be able to see 60 frames on console, dedicated servers, and players have tons of ideas with what Bungie could do with the game and things that are needed for the game. So just bear in mind, anything I haven't spoken about that wasn't kind of a thing in D1, I'd definitely love to hear your thoughts about. The final thing, really, I wanted to talk about was power a little bit. Some folks would still say that in D1, in general, we kind of felt more powerful, you know? We had ridiculous exotics like Galahorn, really fast cooldowns, fast movement, time to kill. And there would be some folks who say that we still need more of that in certain parts of the game. And at this point, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because what Bungie are doing in Shadowkeep is giving us more power. Armor is going to be more customizable. There are going to be some options that I'm sure are probably a little bit more potent than we have right now. And unless Bungie are planning on nerfing subclasses or weapons or anything like that, which of course they haven't announced, by the way, and I'm not suggesting. But if that isn't the case, then of course any perks or abilities that we get via artifacts should only really increase our power. So I just think it's interesting that they do have the potential to contribute to that feeling of power, and we'll also have to earn it in the game. So the gameplay loop, the ways we'll unlock perks and upgrade them, yeah, I think that's going to be a really interesting element. And this should mean some relatively big kind of gameplay changes and introductions once we see what those bonuses are. So there we go, guys. I've rounded up a lot of the stuff that I think about, and I've seen players talk about when we kind of discuss D1 versus D2, which I think at this point is a weird argument, you know, to present it like that. But as I've said, for me, I think there are things that are missing from Destiny 1 that if Bungie look at and bring into this game more, it's only going to complement the innovations that they have made with D2, right? It's the same way as if you imagined Destiny 1, but they pulled the title system and some of these new progression systems and collections that we've seen since Forsaken into Destiny 1. That sounds pretty exciting, right? So I think in that way it proves that all of these ideas are really good. And for now, that would be my feedback on things that Bungie have done in the past. and can look to do again even in different ways. So once again, let us know your thoughts, guys. But if you've enjoyed the video, a rating really helps me out. I'll do my best to keep up with what you guys are talking about in the comment section. Let's have some pretty juicy discussion about the future of the game. And of course, we're going to be learning more about Shadowkeep over the coming weeks. So it is a very exciting time, and we're going to get the most significant content drop that we've had inside of a year. So awesome stuff. But if you're new around here, guys, be sure to hit subscribe. I'll keep you posted on everything related to the game. But otherwise, I hope you have an awesome day.